Hey Alex, it's been a year. How you doing?
I know, it's been a freaking year. I'm good. How are you? Here
I'm
we
good.
are
So
again.
yeah, I know. A year later, we decided, I don't know, like a couple of weeks, a month ago, we were like, let's just like show up whenever we feel like it to record some of our wide and meandering talks about spirituality, the universe, guides, the
Yeah.
cosmos, galactic beings, channeling, all the things. And so now we're committed, but in the most relaxed way possible. And yeah, we're just here to talk about things that have been coming up for us and hope it lands for whoever, whichever five people watch this.
Yeah, the one or two people that find this video, feel free to comment, feel free to initiate conversation. I mean, why not? It's 2024. Fuck it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Just talk
And
about stuff.
Alex, for our 1 to 5 viewers, what do you do? Where are you based out of?
I am finding myself currently in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I moved here a little over 3 months ago. An intuitive decision just to set the tone for this kind of conversation. And what do? I currently spend most of my time doing energy healing with a modality I call DNA light energy weaving and activation. So I help people reawaken dormant DNA strands. I work on removing ancestral trauma with them. I give them insights on their current physical, emotional, spiritual health, and anything else that comes up in a session with them. I love what I do. I love it. Don't want
I
to do
love
anything
that.
else.
I know,
What do
right?
you
It's like
do,
we're never.
Lindsay? Who are
Oh yeah, thank
you?
you. Who am I? I am nothing and everything.
Yes,
Um,
all at once.
yeah, all at once. What is time? I love that description. I wish mine was as good or as thorough. I so Alex and I originally met in corporate America in a consulting firm, and now here we are,
Here we are.
still having these long conversations. Um, I yes, so I do lots of different things. Soon to be more unique ones. We will talk more about that in a little bit, but yeah, my background. I started out in like the coaching space, and then realized I had these more like psychic and channeling gifts, and they have evolved over time to where I now run a practice where I do spiritual mentorship, intuitive development. I channel. Right now, it's mostly like galactic groups, but I can channel a lot of different things. It just kind of depends. And yeah, I work with clients to do all sorts of different psychic readings, soul guidance sessions. And yeah, the like, oh, and I also do regression hypnosis. I love working in the subconscious. So
Just, just another cool, awesome thing you do. It's amazing.
I know I'm like, I like a lot of things. But anyways, yeah, but lots of changes happened in 2023, and here we are in 2024 living our best lives. I'm based out of Texas. For now, we'll see wherever I am next. I was in Argentina with Alex a little while ago, bebopping around, processing ego deaths and all those sort of things. Fucking Buenos Aires.
What
It's like,
what a fun trip. Yeah,
I
I
know,
guess
I was like, Alex.
for anyone who has never been to Argentina and is sensitive to energies whatsoever, this is the most intense energetic place I've ever been. Like it is bebop and wild down here in the best way. Buenos Aires will rip your energetic body open and make you watch yourself very
Yeah.
closely. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, it seems like you've started to find some sort of like homeostasis or balance or whatever. And it's given you such a beautiful space to really like develop your gifts in a great way, which I was telling Alex before we got on here. I feel like I'm finally starting to uh, be in that space. I feel like I went through a lot of healing time after corporate. Like, I don't think you needed as much like sleep as I did. You seem to be in a
Yeah.
much better state than I was when I left corporate America.
I
I
also
needed
just
like
have
2 years
like
of
an
sleep.
intense amount of energy usually, like, but even coming here, I feel like I didn't sleep really for like 3 months. And then this month
Yeah.
I'm finally like sleeping again. And I don't know, it's just weird. The whole last year, I think I just needed to just be on last year to execute
Yeah.
this move and finish everything. And now I'm here and I'm like, oh, I'm allowed to sleep again. Dope. I'm excited.
I know you're like, "What? I don't have to set an alarm?" No, I know, and it's so funny because 'cause you're a projector, I'm a projector in human design, and, like, I think when you saw me, like, in real life, you're like, "Oh, yeah, like, you are classic projector energy, you were so tired all the time," and I'm like, I know I present really, like, bouncy and happy, but I need a lot of rest."
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm learning that too. I mean, I love having the most empty day schedules ever because it allows me to change things too. I mean, even this call
Yeah.
today, like we moved a couple times because we had to, we needed to, and it's like I'm enjoying that in South America in general. Like people will move stuff around and keep it fluid. I think they do that really well here. Something America can learn from that you don't
Yeah.
have to kill yourself on stress levels to execute like a task. It can wait. It can wait. Nothing is worth more than being rested and present and overall well-being. So,
Yeah. And that is like being rested and present is not quite the values that we strive for here in America. It's like seen as such a negative thing to want to prioritize rest and being present, you know? And so and I still work through that, you know, and I think we all do, but like that program of uh doing enough in the day, feeling worthy because we did something, because we did enough. And, you know, I'm glad that I don't know. I'm glad that we're both getting to experience what life can be like without having to live in that sort of unrealistic and unhelpful program.
yeah, I mean it comes with breaking patterns, right? Like the the intense financial stability that a lot of people seek by doing really stressful work. It's a different comfort level you got to get used to, but I wouldn't trade it for the world, to be honest. Like, I'm
I
good.
know. I know. And it was so funny. I was watching this TikTok video the other day about this American woman who she looked like she was like maybe in her late 20s or something. But she was living in Ireland and she was like, they take so much money out of our taxes. I don't get paid as much. She's like, I'm gonna go back to America and work there for a couple years, save back up, and like, I'll make more, whatever. And then there's like, it like skipped to like present time. And she's like, you guys, like, America is so expensive. Like, I have to pay for so many things that even though I get paid here, my life is so much more chaotic. I am so tired. I'm so busy. And
Mm.
I still don't, I feel like I'm always broke. She's like, I never felt that way when I was living in Ireland or whatever. And I was like, okay,
I was thinking about it the other
interesting.
day. It's like, people who do like stock market trading. And if you talk to someone like that, they'll talk about like, well, the stakes are high, right? Like the more you trade, the more money you play with, blah, blah, blah. I really feel like it's a similar analogy, like being in the US and then going to another country with a more socialized system or a different currency like value, because uh, you have to make so much money in the US because you're playing with higher stakes. It's a bigger monopoly game of like you're buying all the
Yeah.
hotels instead of the little houses. You know what I mean? And it's like if you fuck up with any of that row of hotels, like you're done. It's just higher risk, and therefore more pressure. And it's like, but
And
that's
like
the
no
normal
safety
life.
nets.
And that's
Yeah.
the there to operate at this higher play tier. That doesn't mean it's better. It's just more loss, like higher risk of bigger loss in a shorter amount of time, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I imagine how my life would look if I had more safety nets, or how other people's lives could look like, or if people could do the things that we're doing if they felt they had enough safety nets to support them, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Anyways,
Here we are.
love this tangent.
Um,
All right, well, where should we begin? As Esther Perel likes to say, where should we begin?
where should we begin? I mean, we were talking about money. I guess I'm gonna dig right in. We were talking about wounding before the call and healing. Money wounds are big. And we were talking about if you heal one thing, does it heal all the things in past lives?
Oh, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we were talking about a timeline shift. And Alex did a DNA weaving session, like a session on me last month, and she was like, "You're going through an ego death, and you're in a new timeline that your soul did not sign up for. So you may not be doing the thing you thought you were going to do here." And then I was like, again, like fully in line with an ego death. I was like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing? I know nothing. Like, what am I doing with my life? Where am I going? Falling apart. And then you and I were both going through it. So like we had days of just like depressing voice memos back and forth to each other.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was rough. December was rough.
Dude, I can't. Yeah, it was so rough. But yeah, and so then it got me thinking how you know, the things that the programs and these sort of like deep things that are not just even like from this lifetime, but others that have been pervasive. When you talked about what they were and the things that you were pulling out of like my spine and all these other things, I started to realize like when I was looking at the timeline of my life, like in the past as a child and whatever, I was like, oh my gosh, these things have been deeply pervasive and are a reflection of a lot of the like emotional wounding and the way I responded, like most of the way that I responded when I'm or used to feel like I'm a lot better than I used to. People probably won't believe me who know me now, but like very angry. Like I have a lot of Sagittarius in my chart. Let's put it that way. A lot of fire energy, even though I have a lot of Scorpio as well. But the
Yeah.
way that I responded was like through a lot of anger. And that builds up in the body. And I just remember thinking, like, oh my gosh, if I were to think about how I responded with some of these very specific programs, like there that has been pervasive in my childhood and in up until like the past couple of years, right? And you telling me that this is a new timeline because just got me thinking about the idea that of course time is not linear, but how even though I'm in this new timeline shift or on moving into this new timeline that I necessarily did wasn't going to do when my soul was like, let's do this earth game, let's incarnate here. That it it was and Alex, you might have to help me like verbalize this a little bit better because I feel like you did it better than when we were talking before. That
Happy to help.
how because time is not linear and you're healing these programs, it then heals itself through the ancestral lineage, through your past. But then because nothing is time is not linear, the idea that this is something new, like a new timeline, but still yet pervasive, it just sort of like all started like the blocks were like all connecting together and it like all started to snap into place. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is huge. This is a huge thing for me to work through. And that's why it like almost took my breath away because I was like, this is the thing. Like this is the thing I'm working on. I know it is because it feels so profoundly uh like I don't know if I can do this. Like it feels like really painful and hard. And I don't know if I can actually do this because this feels like a mountain I don't think I can climb up and get over. And that's when I knew it was definitely like, that's the thing. That's the thing. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think um it's so cool, right? Because I feel like in the spiritual space, especially online, you know me, I always get a little critical and cynical about stuff like that. It's like there's so much content that uses catchphrases, right? Like ancestral healing, activation, and we're using these terms
ascension.
too. Ascension. What the fuck does all that shit even mean? Like, sorry, I curse a lot, but it's like exactly what you said. It's ancestral healing isn't just, oh, I'm healing it in this life. It has this reverse domino effect, this huge benefit that is deeply healing to the soul. And so many people are attached to the physical presence of their body in this life and stuff, and also the ego of, I'm here now, I'm healing myself now. But you're doing so much more than that. Every step of growth has this ripple effect across time, and time isn't linear. So it's really not backwards, it's multidimensional into all these areas. It's almost like, the visuals I see when I have meditations or when I'm communicating with guides or whatever messages are coming in to help me expand what I do and also to help me heal and grow, is it's a neuron system. You know how a neuron looks? It looks like a someone
The
spilled some
spider.
coffee and it has
Yeah.
spider
Splat.
kind of like, yeah, like that. And that's what it is. You're healing in every direction, multidimensionally, and not just for your soul. Every soul gets the benefit of every aspect of healing that we do. And talking about the ego, as we take that out of it, we realize that every step we take, it heals everyone else a little bit. It elevates all of us a little bit. And how beautiful is that? However, it also makes us feel like, whoa, that's a big fucking deal. Like I'm about to like do this shit, and it feels scary. But at the same time, that's exactly what's meant for us, pushing us out of that comfort zone. I
Yeah.
love
And I'm a
that
big,
stuff.
yeah. And like, you know, I've worked with clients and talked with people who, like, I might start teaching shadow work or something, and we talk about triggers, and they're like, well, I don't get triggers. And I'm like, I also used to think I wasn't a victim either, but but I like keep that inside, and I'm like, oh yeah, so like, but I think the other thing too, when we talk about like healing, and that is another, it's so funny, Alex, like you and I both are like cringe with some of these like spiritual words. We're like, fucking hell, like, oh no,
Mm,
crystal and grid, rainbow light codes, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, nobody knows what you're fucking talking about. And you're just, and this is another tangent I'm not going down, but about how, as people who work in the spiritual world, continue to distance the collective by using words people do not understand. That's something I used to have an ex boyfriend who I would be like, read the room, man. Like, nobody knows what you're fucking talking about. Like, can you not realize that, like, we don't have we don't have an MD. Like, they don't understand the language you're using. Like, let's bring it back
mm.
down. Or even like consulting jargon, like, okay, none of these people are consultants. Like, read the room. And it blows my fucking mind that people get so caught up in their own spiritual narrative that they use terms that people can't connect with, or that is confusing. Or, and you're really good about this, Alex, especially because you work so much with like transformer angry guy Anubis. Sorry, he always makes me think of like the transformer guy, the main character. Like when I was channeling with him with you that one time when I was gonna read it, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're like the guy in Transformers. Like I can't remember Megatron.
Megatron, hell yeah.
Megatron. That's who I was thinking of when I was talking with Anubis. And you were really good at pointing out, you were like, okay, let's try a different word. Or you were very particular about like the words that you use and how we describe stuff. And I think what happens when we look at me going on a fucking tangent. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get my ADD
No,
ass
this is
back
great.
in
No,
the
no,
gear.
no, we're good.
But the way that we use this language that people can't, everyday people who are in the beginning of their spiritual journey, or have been on it, and are at a certain level and maybe moving into another depth of their wisdom and their abilities, they may even take the words that you're saying, assign their own meaning, and then it just gets muddy and it doesn't mean anything anymore, or it's used in a way that is not really the intended way, or capturing the expansiveness of the light. It's so funny. I was looking at words this morning. I was like working in the like with the Akasha this morning, and they had me like look at words and like feel into the vibrational frequency of different words. And I was like watching things move and shift and change, and just like the way that, just like what you said before, words have meaning and energetic frequencies tied to them, and when we misuse them, then the depth, the the healing, the whatever we're using these words for, gets like really skewed, and it gets distorted in a way. And so I always think about and cringe too when people just like haphazardly use these words that like people don't know what you're talking about, and
Mm.
it drives me fucking nuts.
I've been
Anyways,
so
off my
I,
soapbox.
no, I feel like we're gonna continue on this path of words because it's like, I mean, I went to school for linguistics and translation, so like words are everything to me, and I think about them in so many different languages all the time. I'm like, well, in this language it has this connotation, in this language it has this connotation. Something as simple as the word, right? Like it can mean so, it has so many facets behind it culturally, depending on where it's from. And I've been thinking a lot about and journaling a lot about semantics and connotations of meanings, no matter what language you use. But in the world of the internet, you could access any information in any language that you wanted to. And we've gotten to this point where I feel like words are oversaturated with connotations. So like even I'm not going to go into it, but the example of like the political space. You could use one name of a politician or one word that is mostly used by one political party in whatever country you're in, and people will immediately get triggered because it might be not the party that they're following, or they might disapprove of this politician, or they're huge fans, right? And it will cause people to completely shut down and stop listening to what you're saying. Like if I'm talking about fruits and I might say tomatoes trump bananas, the word Trump might really piss someone off and immediately trigger them because there's trauma attached to that for that person, or like an opinion attached to that. And I really feel like whether it's spirituality or any other topic we talk about, I've been thinking a lot about how we're growing into a phase of history now where our words are actually limiting us more than ever because we've saturated them in our own egocentric trauma-driven BS. And
Hmm.
how do you get out of that? I don't know, but in my heart, I feel so strongly that words are not the future of communication. I really feel like this intuitive way of communicating, different ways of connecting will be the future. Now, I think we're still many years off from really being there, but I think it says a lot about the amount of conflict on Earth right now, you know, because
Yeah,
our words are limiting us and our unresolved trauma is triggering us to not listen because we're caught up
yeah.
in words.
Yeah, and a lot of I'm just gonna go straight there. A lot of galactic races barely even have mouths because they don't speak verbally anymore. Everything is telepathic. And you'll even hear like you've probably heard of like, and I'm saying you know you have and you know, but those five people listening or two people listening, I may
Hey,
have
y'all.
heard of like a abduction, I say abduction in quotes, stories that where it's like, oh, well, we just spoke mind to mind. And it's like, yeah, because a lot of like very advanced uh, I hate to call them races. Even like race feels like very charged.
Saturated.
But
Yes.
yeah, but these different galactic groups, like they have evolved past that. Some of these groups have like hive type mind systems, or where they're all collectively like tapped in, but they don't need to speak anymore. And so yeah, when you hear these abduction stories, a lot of them will talk about, oh well, I just communicated with them telepathically. It's like they were in my mind. It's like they were, this is like, yeah, because they understand how to activate that within you. And that is over time where we evolve to, because words are so limiting. Just like Alex, when we channel and we're receiving information, we receive information in almost like a completely like it's not even three, it's like beyond three dimension. It's like you receive so many things. You're seeing visions, words, feelings,
Feelings.
emotions, memories. You're, like it's like so comprehensive that that is why you move towards the telepathic mind type of information, because words are so limiting to describing things that are multidimensional.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I've had quite a few clients recently, I would say over the last 2 weeks, ask me how do I channel, or like what does that how do they talk to me, whoever they are, right? Guides, messages, whatever. And when I try to explain it, like mouths are usually agape while I'm explaining it. They're like, "What?" because it's not words. Um, like you said, it's all the senses at once. And yet it's not a real thing I see in front of me. It is
Hmm.
third eye vision, it is intuitive vision, it's a dream vision, whatever you want to call it. Again, words are limiting us, but it's like that's why I like to use the phrase when I summarize readings to people after an energy weaving session of I came to understand that blah blah blah, because I used to say a lot, oh, I saw you do this, I saw you do that, and a lot of my clients will think that I'm literally like seeing these full movie visuals, and I'm like, nah, like sometimes it just comes straight through my skin. I don't know how to explain that. But it's an understanding that is so immediate, right? Like time, it's not like I'm watching a 2 hour movie. Like an energy weaving session is 10 to 25 minutes usually. And in that time, I would be able to write a book about that person at times. That's the amount of
Yeah.
information and understanding we gain. I know it's the same for you. But for people who have not accessed that level of communication yet, I do believe everyone will over time. That seems crazy.
Yeah. No, and I love that point you made that like when you receive, we'll call them like downloads or like packages of information, and then they unfold in front of you and you receive them or understand them through these variety of intuitive communication styles, variety of senses or whatever. The reason that's so much more effective is because you can literally get a book's worth of information like that
Mm,
and receive. And it's interesting too. I also want to talk to you a little bit about some of the downloads you've been having around like the things you've been learning around like the DNA activation
yeah.
and how you read a little bit from your journal, and what it makes me think of the that idea of like it's almost like hard to put into words to journal all of the information you receive because your understanding of it isn't just through the words. Your understanding of it is way more multifaceted than just words you put on paper. And so sometimes it can be really difficult. Even I, when I give readings, can struggle sometimes when I'm receiving information and then I need to translate it because I'm like, okay, how do I put into words a thought, a feeling, a memory, an idea, and a message, and just communicate that verbally? Like, how do I translate that? And so, yeah, I'm curious about like when you receive information, channel information around like your DNA activation aspects that you're exploring and receiving right now. Like, how does it show up for you? What are you getting?
Um, it's a good question. There is definitely, I want to start with what I'm doing while I'm getting it because I dedicate time now to really ask for stuff. When I first our video like a year ago, that was when things were just spontaneous coming to me, right? And I hadn't really learned how to first of all tell Anubis like, yo, please don't wake me up every day at 3 or 4 a.m. Like I'd really like to sleep. Um, I'm
If
just
I had like
now.
tech skills, I would put Metatron. Sorry, that not Megatron. Metatron. We could put him up too. But Megatron, I'd be like, I would like have him come up next to you. Anyways,
Oh yeah,
sorry.
dude, comic book style, like to have like what normal YouTubers do. We're not at that level. We're like
We don't, because we
oldie
don't care. We're
and we
just
don't
like,
care.
look, we don't care. We don't have time, but we want to share this frequency
Yeah,
and energy out into the world and hope it helps support whoever, all five of you
exactly.
or three of you.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyways,
like a year ago, it was really like like it was just coming to me. And even just a few months ago when I first arrived in Buenos Aires, I remember I was in my friend's car. I told you this story. One of my first nights here, and he was driving me back to my place after like meeting a bunch of people that day, and I had like a massive download in the car, and I thought my third eye was gonna pop out of my skull. Like it was just intense. And um, the only analogy I have is during that time, it just felt like I hadn't tuned my radio dial yet of having a little bit more control and like boundaries, even with these spirit guides, to also balanced with my normal life. Like a lot of people get caught up in this, like, oh, I want that in spirituality. I want to seek that. No, y'all, it's not that fun to like not ever sleep, right? Like
What are
it
you
is.
talking about? You could just ignore them like I did. Conchana was like, what did she say? You like, you don't believe them. I'm like, just don't believe him, Alex. Do what I did for the longest time. I'm sorry, I just had to add that in. But you're right. You're right. They bother you way more intensely. I say bother. I'm sorry, guys. Um, but they were, you know, especially Anubis, Megatron was really intense with you, where I feel like mine were not as intense. And so it was much harder for me for a while to discern, because I was like, I don't, you know, I could just
Yeah.
move along. Like I just dismiss them. So, yeah, you could just ignore them like I did for a long time.
Yeah. And for me, it's like full body sensations. I mean, it'll be like a dizzy, like at first, it would be like feeling dizzy, or my vision blacks out and I will just see very, you know, I'll call them psychedelic type images. And I literally
Yeah.
can't see anything else. That's how it started a year ago. Now it's way more controlled because now I'm also, you know, we've built a rapport with one another. Like I understand them, they understand me. I've been able to tune the radio dial, and now it's I invite their input. I can ask for things, I can ask to learn, and more guides coming in, phasing in and out depending on where I'm at in my life. So now it's more the method is, you know, I've dedicated meditation time minimum once a day. I also just got back to automatic writing, since that seems to be a skill I have. And it's actually something I avoided for a long time because the stuff I write when I automatically write is just so hella nerdy. And this is again what we talked about with this like very woo-woo spiritual saturated language. The stuff I automatically write is very technical. If I were to put that, you know, on Instagram tomorrow and put a bunch of spiritual hashtags, I feel like people be like, what the hell is this? What the hell is this? I don't resonate with that. That's not very love and light. It sounds like a computer program. Well, that's what it is. So I am
Believe it or
channel.
not, you are technology.
Yes. So so that's step one. And then where were we going with that question of how does the information come in? Was that the
Yeah, like what
question?
are you yeah, what are you experiencing when you're receiving that type of information? Like how does that come through for you?
For me, when I'm doing automatic writing, and for anyone who doesn't know what that is you sit down with a pen and paper and you just start to write, and you don't read what you write until you're done. This isn't like creative writing exercises where you're like, oh, I'm just being creative. Like automatic writing is a form of channeling and is truly a voice in my head that isn't mine. So that will come through as just like a dictation. And I'm writing it and I'm writing it and I'm writing it. And then I read it all at the end. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. That's really technical. Interesting. It's almost like my brain shuts off and I'm just writing from the voice that's in my head. When I'm having other downloads, it's usually I'm sitting in meditation, and it'll be what we said already of full body sensations, visuals, hearing, like a combination of everything. And then other downloads I get that are very visual and very body heavy is when I'm doing tantric kind of dancing on my own, as well, have the most intense physical downloads. Um, which also dictate my movements, and I'll do energy weaving while I'm dancing. I'll channel like my dancing will kind of mirror an animal spirit that I feel within me, which lately it's a lot of cobra, snake energy, as well as ravens and like weird ass birds that I don't think actually exist on Earth. I haven't figured that one out yet.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yay. That's fun.
Yeah. So, how about you? How is it for you?
It's so interesting. So how do I say this? This what I'm about to say, I'll give context first for the way. So what you're describing with the writing stuff, you call it automatic writing, I call it channeled writing. Because you 'cause in my opinion, you are channeling through messages. Um, the difference for me, and I'll tell you a story first for why I do this, and this is what works for me. is when I grew up, I was like tormented from a very, very young age by like, we'll say dark entities. And I grew up, you know, I have a little bit of the story on my website, but, or if you've ever like heard me speak before, I kind of talk about it on like podcasts and stuff. But yeah, just like grew up terrified and didn't know what I was going to wake up to. I never slept. I always had a nightlight on, even as like an adult, because I didn't know what I was going to feel or see. When
I
I
was
woke
a
up, I didn't
nightlight
know.
kid too, but I never really thought
Yeah,
about that more. So I'll reflect on
yeah,
that. Continue.
yeah, yeah. So for me, part of me setting these sort of energetic boundaries is I am a big fan of and again, this is a personal approach based on some of the experiences that I've had. Um, Me setting energetic boundaries is choosing who's allowed to come through and channel through me, and it's being very intentional and very specific. So and I teach in this way too. I really try to teach the idea of like, and I don't think you do this, so this is not you, but I've seen this again going back to the like spiritual woo stuff, and I would have clients or students or whatever who would want to channel whatever wants to come through. When I would say set an intention about your guides or who you want to connect with or what your intention is, and they would say, I just want to receive whatever I need to hear, or I would just want to connect with whoever wants to connect with me. And I would be like, wait a second. Are
No,
you
no, no,
sure? Are
no,
you
no.
sure that
That's
that's what you want? Because as somebody who has experienced a lot of light and dark, do you want that? Like, is that really what
mm,
you want? And so for me, the way that I've tried to or work to cultivate healthy energetic boundaries when I channel is I don't, and I will say I have done this. Like, I'm like, I don't know who's coming through, or like, I don't know what's channeling through, but it's like, well, just that was in the beginning. Nowadays, it's, I choose to work with Archangel Michael. I choose to work with the Akashic uh, records or masters. I choose to work with the Arcturians. I had a conversation with the guides that I work with. So I work a lot with Arcturians and the Akasha, and I had a conversation with the group of Arcturians I've worked with for a while, where I was like, hey, y'all need a chaperone. And I didn't say chaperone, but I basically said like, if we're going to work together and do this, I need to ensure that at least one member of this team is from like a much higher dimension in order to anchor this in like pure love, and not because the Arcturians, you know, love technology as well. You work a lot with the Syrians, you are Syrian, you know, it's very much aligned with your energetic signature. I'm not Arcturian, but they like to work with me. I guess I've worked with them a lot before in the past, but I have a very close relationship with them. And I had to have a conversation. Part of my energetic boundary was like, look, in order for us to work together, I need this to be anchored from a higher dimension so that it's very to ensure that whatever technology or thing you're teaching me is connected to the heart. It shouldn't be devoid of that aspect. I want that threaded through everything that we work through, and that has shown up. And I work with that lead guide. I was working with him yesterday, and you know, it works through. But so when I'm channeling, I first set an intention of who I want to channel with, um, and then the information will come through. A lot of times for me, that's why I think I've had a hard time with discernment for a while, is a lot of times it sounds like my voice. And so like I
mm,
think it's so easy for us to dismiss the information that comes through because it's my voice. Even yesterday, so the way that the Arcturians communicate with me is different than the Akasha. So the Arcturians, they send me like information bubbles. And so I can literally feel this bubble and I'll just be channeling it. I can literally stop, go do something else, come back and keep pulling on the information in that bubble. Whereas the Akasha, it's like I'm live channeling them it's streaming through. So I have to be very careful because if I what do you say? Like, because you open your mind, right? Like I'm the same as you, like you kind of like clear out your mind. But if I let a thought come in and then I'm like, oh man, I pulled myself out of the stream of consciousness. Like even this morning, I pulled myself out of stream of consciousness on accident, and I couldn't ever pull back the thing that they were
Mm.
trying to say. And then I tapped in and I felt like it was closing. So, long story short is a lot of times for me, and at least right now, it sounds a lot like my voice. And so, yeah, yesterday when I was working with the Arcturians, I realized they were sharing all, like, I was sitting there meditating and I all of a sudden kind of like realized, like, oh my gosh, they're sharing all this information with me right now. But I thought it was my voice and it was them sharing all this information with me. And I was like, oh my God. And so I was like, okay. And then I just like kept like letting it unfold. And so, yeah, I think and that's, it's similar to what we talked about with you too, where it's like we write down some of the information, and partly I write it down because I'll forget it. Like, if I need to go back
Totally.
and reference something, it may be activated within my DNA. It may be integrated within me, but at a subconscious level. So if I want to go back at a conscious level and work with that information, writing things down is really important for me. That's why yesterday part of my meeting or session with the Arcturians was receiving some information, but then at a point I stopped and started writing things down so that I could go back and look at them. But all of the different groups that I have worked with or channel with in the past, they have their own subtle nuances. And the more I think you channel, the more you become connected to your body, as Alex is always coaching me to do, because I love being up and out of my body. Um, but you
But you're
you will
working on it.
feel. I am working on it. I almost died the other day in breath work, but it's fine. It's fine.
You're
I'm fine. I
fine.
survived. I survived. Um, so yeah, I think it's just like the more that you connect with your body, the more that you do this work, the more intentional that you are about it, you will start to see the subtle nuances of the different groups that you connect with, and you'll start to get messages that are even clearer. You start to you know who you're channeling. Like sometimes, yeah, like Arcturians will just show up. They've showed up in a couple of sessions, and I'm like, they show up on my right side. This is what I see in my third eye. They show up on my right side, and it's like a blue energy, and they feel more dense. So galactic guides for me typically feel a little more dense, or at least these Arcturians do, than maybe like spirit guides that are, I'm working with. But yeah, they'll show up, and I'm like, what are you guys doing here? Why are you, and they're like, hey, what's going on? You want to work together? Like, I got some messages here. Like, hey, what's up? What's up? What's up? And so it just, yeah, it's always different, but the more you work with it, the more like Alex, you have a dedicated practice. I'm shifting into a more dedicated practice. I was more like going with the flow, just kind of, whatever. And I think the more that you can dedicate a practice, the more connected with yourself and with these channeled messages you can get. And it allows, like you're doing, like it allows you to access really technical pieces of information because you've created this very consistent and intentional practice. Whereas, like, I hate to even say this, but it's like I probably could have done more had I set an intentional practice, but you know, other things are priority, work on other things. But that's why I love the work that you've done, because it's such a great reflection of what happens when we show up to commit ourselves to truly learning these higher dimensional pieces of technology, which the
Nice.
overarching theme that I want to share with people, whoever is watching this, is that
Hello, one
Alex
to
and
five
I,
people.
hello, that Alex and I are working with inner technology. This is not outer technology. So when we talk about technology, we are talking about the development and the elevation of our inner technology as a collective, not about the outer world and the outer technology. So that's one thing I just really want to point out when we talk about
Well said.
technology, that this is inner technology. This is not the external. We are not working in the external. There are a lot of people who can go and build buildings, but we're working with the internal.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. You're so sweet on complimenting my dedication to practice. Honestly, it's like, you know me, I do yoga all the time. I, for me, I mean, you mentioned about your childhood a little bit. I was a very timid child. Uh, you mentioned anger earlier, Scorpio here, tons of anger growing up. It's just that I was so timid and just from, stuff growing up, I would stuff down my anger. And so for me, talking about trauma and embodying the trauma we carry as souls through each lifetime, I found myself physically ill in my 20s. And it's something I'm really passionate about when I work with people, even on this DNA light energy weaving stuff, is so many people look at spirituality as this head and above kind of thing. But in this day and age, I'm if I could stand on a pedestal right now, I fucking would. It's just like it's
It's
in
both.
or it's everything. It's everything.
Yeah.
And your body is the last blockchain of healing. Like if you've been working on a wound from your childhood on trauma for, I don't know, I'm just gonna put a timestamp on it. Let's say 6 years. I guarantee you your body is gonna clear that out for longer than that because it's like a domino effect and your cells regenerate slower than the mental chains you're breaking, the thought patterns you're rewriting, right? Your brain regenerates very quickly on a cellular level. Your physical cells, all the different cells we have in our body, are slower, and that's totally normal, totally fine, nothing bad about that. But that's why I'm someone I borderline preach a lot about, like, are you doing yoga? Are you doing somatic movement? Not because I'm a huge fan, I am, and because I enjoy it, but it's also because I know the benefits of it. As someone who's almost died of organ failure because of anger I never processed as a child, I am living proof that this works. And so when people say your question of how do I channel, so much more has come to me by allowing myself to dance. And I was that kid at a school dance growing up that would be like standing up against the wall, way too shy to dance. And it's a personal practice for me. I dance very much alone in my house, shut inside. But if I didn't, I wouldn't have learned so much as I have over the last year.
Yeah. And I think, you know, one of the things that is really important to point out is I think, you know, culturally over the past, you know, several decades or more, it's like you see the people in all white. You see the people talking, like I said, about like crystalline grids and rainbow light codes and blah, 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 blah. And that all feels very up here. So collectively, we think, I think that that's where that is the, if there was a hierarchy, this is the pinnacle. You want to be able to work in this space. But what we don't realize is if you want to channel and you want to receive information and you want to receive intuitive message, channeled messages, working up here is very unstable. What I teach and what I've been taught and what I really and what you sort of exemplify just in your being and the things that the practices that you do is that your greatest messages come from when you are embodied, from when you are in the body. So like you should be working and receiving and channeling from here. This is where everything comes from. So if you're trying to heal up here, you're missing the other part of the equation. It you know, it always begins and ends with you and I think in the body, right? That's why when I was joking about the breath work, like my intention for that breath work was about releasing some specific things. And
I bet you did.
boy, did I fucking release. I was like I was like, my bones are about to break. Oh my gosh.
Internal combustion
Yeah.
level 1000. Yeah.
Yeah.
Megatron, where are
Yeah.
you? Do
But
you ever
yeah, so I
feel
just
like
yeah.
a Power Ranger when we talk about stuff like this? I'm always like, this is so Power Rangers, Sailor Moon, like when it's like, what are you channeling? What are you doing? I don't know. I just feel like it's very comic book sci-fi. It's just really fun.
I know. I don't know what I feel like. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't know. There's this phrase that goes through my mind a lot is like I'm everything and nothing. I'm nothing and everything. Like that's just kind of how I feel. Like I probably need to like I don't know. I a lot of times when especially when I was really tired during my work in corporate America and the, you know, almost year afterwards, I used to tell people like I'm so exhausted. I'm just like can't function. I'm so tired. And that was when I wasn't even working like I had left, and I was just remember, and there would be times where I would like literally see myself as like an old man with a cane wearing just like a loincloth and like completely shriveled up and just like hunched over, like walking with his staff. So you're like, do you see yourself as Power Rangers? And I'm like, well, I see myself as like an old man, hunched over,
I mean,
like staff. That's
I have that part too. You know, what is that? Oh shoot, what
yeah,
is
the
that actor's
duality.
name?
I guess sometimes I who.
I forgot. It's like a very obvious
Mhm.
actor, but there's like a scene in a movie where he's like an old man and he's got like little kids running around his yard and they drop the ball in there and then he's just like, get off my lawn. That's what I feel like some days. And I'm just
And I will say, and then, uh, in parallel, there are also parts of me in the work I do where when I hear people struggle with, I can't do this, I can't do this, I actually feel the opposite. I feel like I can literally do anything. And when I want to like learn or expand or connect with, it's there for me. And so it's like because it
dichotomy.
just is. Yeah. So it's like there's this part of me, even that like visualization I was telling you about with like the angel and the griffin and stuff that I had where I like went anyways. There I remember I started out that visualization like just completely exhausted. Like completely exhausted, like laying on the floor, being held by who knows, you know who. But that, you know. Um, sorry, I'm such a dork. Um, but
Same.
yeah. So it's like I feel like I live in, and I'm hoping to move out of that exhaustion feeling, right? Of like always feeling. I feel like my body is starting to really like balance out, which is why I feel like I can sleep later. Like I was telling Alex, like I couldn't sleep past like 6:30 or 7 a.m. for like the past 2 years, and now just like you, like all, and I don't know if it's just this cycles of nature or whatever, but now all of a sudden I can sleep until like 8 or 9, and it's just like freaking me out. Like I'm like, what is going on? Why? And I feel
Luxurious.
great,
Yeah.
so luxurious to be able to
Yeah,
sleep. Wow.
I know.
Yeah, so I feel both like there's infinite possibility and I can do anything I want to, and also this tired old man with a staff that needs to hold me up to walk. I don't
Yeah,
know. But
I
hopefully I'm moving out of the
feel
ladder.
that. I feel that. I had a thought earlier on what we were talking about with like the emotions and everything. I feel like it's a theme right now. I don't know how it's coming up in your work with people, but like I've had quite a few people lately ask me, like a lot of people are doing emotional clearing right now that
Mhm.
I relate to on a level that was me several years ago. And it doesn't matter when I was doing this. It's just I empathize so much with people who are in that phase now of their lives because it's tough work. It's that dark night of the soul, whatever you want to call it, that initial super heaviness as you're starting to realize, like, whoa, I have a lot of patterns that aren't healthy for me. Oh, I'm realizing there's a lot of stuff I never thought about more deeply. Oh, I feel like I'm awakening, all those words, I hate those catchphrase words, but it's what we have of like as they're going through that, quite a few people have asked me recently, like, when is it going to end? Like, when am I going to stop crying? Like, when am I going to like sleep normal again? I'm an insomniac, I'm having panic attacks and all those things, and it's like it's not my area of expertise. There are so many beautiful experts out there in the world that are experts in somatic release and like holding someone in that place, like emotionally holding them, being there for them. But the one conversation that I've had a few times now is around like, why do you want to make it stop? Like, I know it's hard, but isn't
Ooh.
it cool that it's actually happening? Because it hasn't happened until now. And again, going back to the physical body is the last piece to react. You're releasing years and years and years. Why do you think it's going to finish like that? It's not going to
I
finish
know.
like that. It's going to
And that's
take
all.
time.
Yeah, and there was I feel like a period of time too where and I think people still want this, but it was more prevalent, I would say, over the past couple of years, of people like they want the quick fix. And I mean, I'm not talking about
Absolutely.
we've always wanted that. That's been for a long time. I'm talking about like spiritually, like the healing aspect. And I think people are starting to realize, because I think they have also, we've seen this, a greater movement too around like the somatic movement, emotional release technique, and da da da, and like the healing and the emotional release in the body. And it makes me, I love there's this like pendulum idea, right? Where like we swing really far one way, then we swing really far another way. And we
Mm,
kind of find a middle ground, kind of like everybody needs to be a vegan. This is how we should eat. This is the cleanest way of eating. And then people were like, no, you need to be a carnivore. You need to da 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 da. And then it was like, and then it was like, who fucking cares? And then now it's like we kind of are starting to move into the middle ground of like, what's right for your body? What feels good for your body? What is balanced for you? You know, and it was the healing idea of, I think it's, we're finding a bit more of the balance and realizing that you need both, and that the physical body is something that is a very key factor in your healing, which is why I think a lot of this like somatic release, the emotional, all that stuff is starting to become very much at the forefront. And I know that like with my clients, when we have like I'll do a group program, and you know, so I'm seeing like conversations in the group chat, and a lot of them are talking about somatic movement. We do, you know, emotional release, like stuff in the fascia, like that's a conversation that I've never seen happen until lately. And so I do think there is
it's
starting to
great.
become this collective connection to the idea that there is a body mind spirit aspect that needs to be synced up in order for it to truly release. But we were so caught up into like, just get it out of me now. I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel this pain. And you and I, as these like watery Scorpios, are like, you need to feel everything. You need to see and feel the light and the dark and the good and the bad within. If you cannot acknowledge your shadow, then you cannot acknowledge yourself as a fully complete multidimensional being. And so that's why even in the beginning when we were talking about how healing is painful and you will feel things, and some people will come to me and be like, well, that doesn't bother me, I don't, but then something will get them and I'm like, and there it is, there's where your healing is, because
Yep.
you know, you've been
Hmm.
triggered. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but
No, I mean,
that.
I think it is a collective trend that's finally happening. It's really exciting to see people getting back to understanding, oh, I need to like really work through what's in my body. But the quick fix thing, geez, gosh, English. Um, it's still a thing. Like people want to give up their power. They will pay any amount of money for any pill or solution or thing that can fix them. And I've told several of my clients of, listen, I could weave your energy every fucking day for the next 60 years. If you don't take care of you, what I'm doing, I'll be doing the same weaving every day for the next 60 years. It won't do anything. It won't do anything. I can't fix another person. You can't fix another person. The reason that we do what we do is to ignite a person, to equip them with breadcrumbs, gifts from the multiple dimensions around us to help them ignite their soul and move forward. Every step forward I see people take, it warms my heart. It's worth more than any amount you could pay me.
Mm-hmm.
But they could also choose to give up at any point. It's their choice, kind of coming full circle to how we started this multidimensional healing. If I ignite one thing in myself, whoa, wild. Um, all these dimensions around me, these other me's, these past me's, future me's, they feel that. You could also choose to give up and reverse it all. It's like you're your own protagonist in a video game. I use the video game analogy a lot. You could play this very level over and over and over. Lindsay and I could have this conversation over and over and over if we wanted to. Or we could grow from it and make a new episode another week. You know what I mean? And it's kind of a funny thing. Once you realize that you have the power of choice, life gets a lot less serious and a lot more fun.
Yeah, totally. I Sorry, somebody keeps entering the Zoom and I'm like, what's going on? So I keep
Oh, are we
you
getting
know,
it? Is it Megatron? Is Megatron joining the Zoom? Hell yeah.
I know. I felt them in like this back of my mind being like, oh, when
Stop
I
call
was calling him
Stop
Megatron,
calling me
like,
Megatron.
have a sense of humor. Like he just doesn't have much of a sense of humor, which is why I like. I don't know. I don't know if he likes it or not. I'm waiting to be like struck down by him at some point because I'm like, come on, buddy. Like this is
Oh,
fun, isn't it? And he's like, get out of my face.
I don't know. I mean, he and I get along. Anubis and I get along great, but I feel like
Yeah.
he's also like my dad in a sense. So I'm like, we're good.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got like grumpy old man energy
I,
for
he's not
sure,
like
but
that
in a
with
fun
me
way. Oh, he has
because he's
like
not
the
your
Liam
guide.
Neeson. Yeah, I know. That's why I like am not as I'm not as like precious about it. So I like kind of feel like I give him shit a little bit. And I'm like, am I even supposed to do that? I don't know if that's allowed. Cause he's so different than the guys that I work with that it's like
I
just
know.
kind of fun. It's kind of fun to like be in that energy. And I'm like, oh wow.
I actually love how different our guides are, and yet you and I are, we're connected in this life. I don't know. I always think of us as like an Oreo cookie. I'm like over
Totally.
here with like Lords of the Darkness and Lords of Death and whatever, and snakes and like cobras behind me and shit. And you are also connected to snakes, but then you have this like
It's just in a different way.
angelic energy kind of thing going on, and I'm over here like, people are dying, be in your body. For
I
fuck's
know.
sake.
I know. But but that's what's so fun is I think our friendship and the work that we do is so it's so interesting the stuff and that is coming up through. Okay, so let me see how I phrase this. Like we channel with different guides and yet we channel similar things,
Absolutely.
and our lives go through similar themes together, but
Mm,
the way that they manifest or how they come through or show up is different. And I think it's so interesting to have so many similarities, but the nuance of it is very different. It's just it's fascinating to me and I love it, and I just think it's like it's been such a cool journey just to like
look at us.
ride on it.
Look at us. Who would
Look
have
at us.
thought? Not
I
me.
know I've been feeling, it's funny, because I work with snakes a lot. Like, I've got this friend, I've got I have them. Oh, you can't even see it. I've got got them. I have snakes everywhere. Um, and yet, like, yeah, like you work, but like you're working with like cobra. Like I feel really connected to like coral and like corn snakes and stuff,
Oh,
like
the
the
cute
orange and
ones.
red.
Nice.
Yeah, the
For
ones
me,
that
it's
can either
go ahead.
I was gonna say the ones that either can kill you or the ones that are not venomous at all. And I'm like, what an interesting paradox that is. I feel like that's pretty apropos for like my
For me, it's cobras very heavily. And then yesterday I connected with a rattlesnake for the first time. But that was actually an animal that came up during a weaving session with a client. And so
yeah,
I think it was actually a representation of just an internal struggle for that person. But yeah, more and more snakes lately. I like
yeah, I love
cobras
it.
though. I loved cobras as a kid too. I was really into like snake charmer videos as a little kid. I
Yeah.
don't know why. And
I like
so many things come full circle where you're like, as a kid, I was really fascinated with XYZ, and I'm like, oh, look at me now.
Yeah, like it's
Fucking
always been with you. And that's going back to like the healing stuff and like people have to choose their healing. And it's like as healers, we can support you. We can activate these things, but only so much as you will allow it to activate and to heal you. And I've had clients who have received profound healing benefits from the work that we've done. And then I have had clients who are like, yeah, I didn't really feel much. I didn't really feel anything. And I used to like always be, just pondering like what is the difference? Like what's the variable here that uh creates these different experiences? And then one day I was having a conversation kind of like this with another person like us, and she goes, the download I got is that it is something within us that we are like, it's like they can only allow the heal, like it's like only as much as they will allow. And so it always ends and begins with you. And healers are not these like gods that come down and can solve all your problems. We're just the amplifiers and the activators that can help provide that healing, but it's always up to you. It ends and begins with you,
Yes.
period, the end.
Yes. And it's also why, certain people want to work with me and certain people just find me absolutely appalling or very triggering, right? And they might choose to work with you instead, or maybe they work with both of us, and that's just the norm. And maybe a few years later, they want to work with me, even though they weren't ready a few years before. It's just something that's actually something I've been working to accept more of, not even like on a clientele basis, but even as a person. Coming to Buenos Aires is a great example of I've now become even hyper aware as someone who's still learning the language. I'm still learning customs and culture here. Entering a room of new people that I'm meeting, it becomes very apparent of how triggering I am to certain people who are not there yet, right? And
Mm-hmm.
other people feel very drawn to me and immediately want to connect with me. It's become more apparent here in a completely new slate, new beginning, new place for me. It's something I noticed before in the US as well, but it just was a nice reminder coming here of like, ooh, truly people in our space of healing and being healers, we can be incredibly triggering, even if we're not talking about our work at all. Just our presence entering a room can be extremely upsetting to some people, and repelling or very inviting. It's something I've noticed about myself, and I'm growing more comfortable with it. You remember the first couple months here, I was like, nobody likes me. I don't know what's going on. And like that was just my own trauma getting triggered
Yeah.
as a mirror and my own ego getting triggered as a mirror.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
humble
Well, and
pie.
I totally, and I think, and that was something I struggled with profoundly for most of my life, especially I think for women too, having these like, oh, well, it must be my fault. Like I must have done something wrong. And so for a long time, you go immediately to like, well, what did I do? What's wrong with me? What do I need to fix or solve or whatever? And then that aside, you and I both being projectors and Scorpios, but like being projectors, our energy is penetrating. So if people at a subconscious level may also be like when our energy in, infiltrates theirs, they will immediately be like, whoa, this is too much. I'm not ready for this. This doesn't, from an energetic level, this doesn't vibe with where I'm at. So it must repel. And so that then creates this like pushing back. So nowadays, I get super excited when people are in my space because I'm like, what? Like you would only be here if we connected. You would like, what am I learning from you? What are we going to connect on? What am I going to see in you? Like now I feel like I found myself worrying much less and being much happier when people don't vibe with me because I can be like, peace out. But like
Exactly.
I can then be like, oh my gosh, what am I going to learn? What am I going to uncover with you? Because if we're connected energetically, this means that like and again, this is a very projectory thing of like wanting to be seen and recognized, right? But
Mm.
it's like, what am I going to see in you? What are we going to see in each other? And how are we connected? Like, I love to like, it's like almost like playing the game of life, being like, how is this relationship gonna unfold? Like, what's gonna happen? Because
Yep.
we wouldn't be
Yep.
able to connect if there wasn't something energetically like sort of connecting us. So
I
it's
feel
fun
like
now.
it is, and I feel like I just got there like in the last 2 months, and I really feel like of just really being like, oh, do you feel repelled by me? I'm so intrigued. Let's see, like, and it's just like that's new for me because of having an abandonment wound that I've been healing for so long, fear of rejection, all of those things. It's like I put so much work into that. So like the reward of now being like, you reject me? Okay, perfect. That means, not meant for
You're
me,
not
but
ready for
also
me. Yeah.
how intriguing. When will I see you next?
I know.
You know?
Well, and same for like friends that come back into my life lately where I'm like,
Mm.
this is cool.
Fascinating.
Like, yeah, like this is really
Fascinating.
cool that I've reconnected with these people. And then like maybe I'll do a reading for them, or maybe and I get to like really see them. And then I'm like, ah, this is so cool. Like you're on this path too. Like this, it's been really neat to see the way things evolve as you evolve and the way people come and go out of your life. Um and yeah, and it's been fun to see the ones that have come back in and just being like really grateful to,
Yeah,
yeah, have a new kind of relationship with them because we've lived and died a million times in this lifetime, Alex, you know?
I know. And the video game continues. I don't know. It's awesome. It's
I
really
know.
cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
on that note, shall we close out this conversation we could have for like 3 hours?
Yeah, yeah. I can't wait to have another one soon.
I know.
It's
So, five
fun.
listeners, three listeners, one listener, stay tuned. We'll be back. Hope you
We'll
like
be back.
these conversations.
Yeah, let us know if you like these. Give me the link once it's up, Lindsay. I'll share it because
Yeah.
why not? Maybe
Yeah.
we'll get like
Yeah.
6 people.
I know. And I will put our contact information and the um, show information below. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, which is where we're mostly active, you can check in with us there. And yeah, give us a like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And thank you for watching. All
Yes,
right.
thank you. See ya.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.